Here's a diplomatic bombshell that's about to reshape Middle Eastern politics forever. Britain is poised to make one of its most controversial foreign policy decisions in decades. Sir Keir Starmer is preparing to deliver what many are calling a historic announcement this Sunday afternoon, the United Kingdom's formal recognition of a Palestinian state. But here's where it gets controversial. This decision is sending shockwaves through international corridors of power, with allies questioning the timing and critics calling it a dangerous precedent. To understand why this matters so much, let's break down what led to this pivotal moment. Back in July, the British Prime Minister essentially issued an ultimatum to Israel. He declared that unless Israel agreed to specific conditions by September, including establishing a ceasefire in Gaza and committing to a sustainable peace agreement that would enable a two-state solution, the UK would fundamentally alter its diplomatic stance. This represents a seismic shift from decades of British foreign policy. For years, successive UK governments maintained that Palestinian recognition should only happen as part of a comprehensive peace process, timed for maximum diplomatic impact. But here's the part most people miss. Starmer's administration believes that moment has arrived, arguing they have a moral obligation to act before hope for lasting peace completely evaporates. The backlash has been swift and fierce. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has condemned the move, claiming it rewards terror, a statement that encapsulates the deep divisions this decision has created. Hostage families, whose loved ones remain captive, have written emotional appeals to Starmer, arguing that recognition at this time undermines efforts to secure their release. Conservatives opposition leader Kemi Badenoch echoes this sentiment, suggesting that timing effectively rewards terrorism. But government sources paint a dramatically different picture. They point to what they describe as a catastrophic deterioration of conditions in recent weeks. The images emerging from Gaza, showing widespread starvation and violence that Starmer has previously labeled intolerable, have apparently convinced ministers that immediate action is imperative. And this is where the situation becomes even more complex. Israel's latest military operations in Gaza City have forced hundreds of thousands of civilians to flee their homes. A UN official recently described the situation as cataclysmic, while a United Nations commission has concluded that Israel committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Allegations Israel vehemently denies as distorted and false. Justice Secretary David Lammy, who previously served as Foreign Secretary when this recognition pathway was first announced, highlighted another critical factor: the continued expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. These settlements violate international law, and Lammy specifically cited the controversial E1 settlement project, which critics warn would essentially eliminate any possibility of establishing a viable, contiguous Palestinian state. The recognition comes as a direct consequence of the serious expansion we're witnessing in the West Bank, the settler violence occurring there, and clear intentions to build developments like E1 that would completely destroy prospects for a two-state solution, Lammy explained. Interestingly, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas welcomed Britain's recognition pledge during his recent visit with Starmer. Both leaders agree that Hamas, the organization responsible for the October 7th attacks, would have absolutely no role in governing a future Palestinian state. The international context adds another layer of complexity to this decision. Several nations, including Portugal, France, Canada, and Australia, have indicated they will also recognize Palestinian statehood, while Spain, Ireland, and Norway took this step last year. Currently, approximately 75% of the UN's 193 member states recognize Palestine, though it lacks internationally agreed boundaries, a capital, or military forces, making recognition largely symbolic rather than practical. For those unfamiliar with the two-state solution concept, it envisions creating an independent Palestinian state encompassing the West Bank and Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem serving as its capital. However, Israel currently occupies both the West Bank and Gaza, meaning the Palestinian Authority cannot exercise full control over its designated territory or population. This recognition has long been championed by Labour Party members, and Starmer has faced mounting pressure from his party's left wing to take a tougher stance against Israel. Just before his July announcement, more than half of Labour MPs signed a letter demanding immediate recognition of Palestinian statehood. But here's what critics find most troubling. While the government set conditions for Israel, they apparently placed no equivalent demands on Hamas. Chief Rabbi Sir Ephraim Mirvis called for the government to pause its decision, noting that the intended recognition isn't contingent upon a functioning or democratic Palestinian government, nor even upon the most basic commitment to a peaceful future. Astonishingly, it's not even conditional upon releasing the 48 remaining hostages. Government sources maintain their demands regarding hostage release and ceasefire agreements haven't changed. However, Foreign Office officials argue that statehood represents a fundamental right of the Palestinian people that cannot be held hostage by Hamas, which Britain classifies as a terrorist organization. Even international allies are expressing reservations. During his recent state visit, U.S. President Donald Trump explicitly disagreed with the recognition decision, adding diplomatic pressure to an already tense situation. The tragic backdrop to all this political maneuvering cannot be ignored. The Israeli military campaign began in response to Hamas's unprecedented attack on southern Israel on October 7, 2023, which killed approximately 1,200 people and resulted in 251 hostages being taken. Since then, according to Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry, at least 64,964 people have died in Israeli attacks on the territory. Starmer had established the UN General Assembly meeting as his deadline for Israel to take substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to long-term, sustainable peace. Speaking in July, he declared, "I've always maintained we will recognize a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process, at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act." So here's the million-dollar question that's dividing opinions across the political spectrum. Is Starmer's timing strategically brilliant or dangerously premature? Does recognizing Palestinian statehood now represent a moral imperative that could salvage hopes for peace? Or does it reward violence and undermine hostage negotiations? What do you think? Should Britain proceed with recognition despite the fierce opposition from allies and hostage families? Or is this exactly the kind of bold diplomatic move needed to break the cycle of violence and move toward a lasting solution? The controversy surrounding this decision reveals just how complex and emotionally charged Middle Eastern diplomacy has become.